Okay, so a very good evening, guys. Can y'all let me know if y'all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Can hear, can see. All good. Right. So today we're going to do two things. One is we're going to finish off all the past papers that is connected to the area cost. Right. So we're going to finish off the essay questions. So last class we did all the MCQs of that. We're going to finish off all the essay questions there. And then we're going to finish off the next focus area, that is on market structures. So both of that is what we need to finish off today. So the class will go till around, I'm guessing till around, let's say around 9:30. But if we can finish off what we have planned earlier, we'll finish off the class early. Okay. So I'll go to the cartoon of the day when we start off revision paper, not revision paper, the focus area 14 related past papers. Okay. So for now, we'll just let it be. So let me share my screen and let's get started. Yes, the cartoon is a Sri Lankan story. Okay. So if y'all remember, right. So if you remember, last class, we started off with the MCQs of this area on cost. So we did all the questions. I don't think I have uploaded it on YouTube yet because I want you all to come to the live session. So we did the MCQs. That part is done and dusted. Now today what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the essay questions under this area. So you have the tute with you. You would have got a printout ideally. So we can get into the essay questions starting from 2011 onwards. So some essay questions I would have typed certain answers, but there will be certain things that I will add along the way itself. So we'll discuss the essay questions. Then we'll take a small 5-minute break. Then we'll move into the next focus area. Okay, right. So 2011 A-levels, question number 4. Sorry, I think it's question number 3. Question number 3, subsection number 3. So it should be question 3 if I'm not mistaken. Question 3, subsection 3. So they're asking you to explain the difference between explicit and implicit cost, giving examples. So what are explicit costs? So explicit cost is what you call, this is right. So what is explicit cost? Explicit cost, or in other words, we call it direct cost. These are the costs, or the expenditure that a business spends on purchasing inputs from outside the firm. So if you're getting any land, labor, capital, any land, labor, capital from outside the firm, not your own resources. If you're getting any resources from outside the firm, you have to directly pay money. Now, if you take my classes to print my tutes, I'm not printing my tutes on my own. I'm printing it from outside. I directly pay money. I get labor, right? I get the admin, I get people to mark papers, right? I get labor and I directly pay money. So whenever you purchase inputs from outside the firm, you have to directly pay money. That is what you call direct cost, or we call explicit cost. So you can go a little bit more in detail. I have just given one line saying the amount of money spent to purchase this thing. But can you also say, this is also the cost that accountants consider. So when calculating profit and all, an accountant will only consider direct cost in his calculation. And then you can give some examples: money spent on wages, money spent on electricity. You can give things like that. Then once you have written that story, now you go into Lamai for the next 2 marks to write about implicit cost. So how does implicit cost work and what is the story around that? Now, implicit cost is another word for indirect cost. So implicit cost or indirect cost is the opportunity cost of using the firm's own resources. So when the firm uses their own resources, the owner uses his own labor, the owner uses his own money there. The owner uses, let's say, his own capital, his own laptop, his own, let's say, table for the firm. And then there is no direct cost, but you have a indirect cost there. So the opportunity cost of using the firm's own resources is what you call indirect or implicit cost. There is no direct monetary payment, there is an indirect cost involved. So examples, things like foregone income, foregone interest of producers, depreciation, and also normal profit. So give a small definition kind of a thing. I would recommend maybe going a little bit more than what I have given over here in the screen, probably around a 2 to 3 line small definition, give some examples, then move to the next one there. So that's question number 3, part 4, 2011. Easy question to start off with. Then we go into the next one. The next one, 2011 A-levels, question number 4. Question 3 again, part 4. They're saying, what are economies of scale and how do they arise? So what is, now see, that's a 6-mark question, Lavan. So ideally, what I feel is, in terms of the mark breakdown, they will ideally give you close to around 2 marks for talking about what is economies of scale, and around 4 marks for talking about the reasons behind economies of scale. So what is economies of scale, Lavan? Economies of scale is where, when the firm is in the long run, right? When you're in the long run. So I'll just write a few keywords. You all write the paragraph. I'm not dictating an answer. So what is economies of scale? That is when a firm in the long run, right? When they continuously expand in the long run, what happens? Their average cost decreases. Now that is what you call my economies of scale, where in the long run, when a firm continuously expands, initially the average cost will start to come down. If you want, you can draw a small diagram and show. You can show the story here. So economies of scale. This is the long run average cost. This is the cost axis. This is the output axis here. The long run average cost reducing. Now that is the economies of scale. Just say EOS. Long run average cost coming down. So that for around 2 marks should be okay. Now you need to talk about, Lamai, what are the reasons? Why does this long run average cost start to come down? So what are the reasons, Lamai? Can you all give me at least one reason? One of you, each one of you. What? Average, yeah, average total cost, same thing. Lamai. Average total cost, average cost coming down. No problem. What are the reasons? Why does this long run average cost start to come down? Remember the reasons for the economies of scale. Anna, you have Lamai, one, managerial efficiency. Now you have to give a small 1-line explanation also, Lamai. Otherwise, it's not enough, right? So remember, please don't confuse this with Lamai. Increasing returns to scale. Increasing returns to scale and economies of scale are 2 things. So don't confuse this with. So you can talk about managerial economies. So what is managerial economies? So managerial economies is where, in the long run, you're able to hire specialist managers. Now, if you are in a small firm, you don't have a specialist marketing manager, specialist HR manager. There's nothing like that, no? But in the long run, when you expand, you can get this highly talented specialist managers who will, drive the efficiency of your firm. They will make your firm very efficient. And as a result, they will bring your cost down. They know different ways of getting different things done. And you can get that there. So managerial economics. So you can say managerial efficiencies. That's also fine. Right? Managerial efficiencies is also able to use machine a one-time cost and all. That will go under increase in returns to scale, not economies of scale. So then you can talk about financial economics. So what are the financial economies of scale? So financial economies of scale is where you are able to raise finance. You're able to raise finance at a much lower cost. Now, if you're a big firm, you can bargain. Now, if I'm a small firm, I go to the bank and say, Ane, can you give me a loan? Bank will say, all right, we will give you. We want 20% interest. But let's say a big firm goes, right? So if a big firm goes in Lamai, they can bargain. Bank says 20%, they will say, nah, 20% we don't want. Can you give me at 18%? Can you give me loan at 15%? They can bargain, Lamai, and they can get loans and all of it at a cheaper rate. That's financial economies of scale, or you can say financial efficiencies. So then these are the types of economies. That's what you have to write, Lama. So how do they arise? When you say how do they arise, they're talking about the types. Okay. So then you have purchasing economies of scale, right? Where you can bulk buy. You can, when you bulk buy, Lama, you get discounts. You can talk about marketing economies, where, you know, when your advertising cost and all gets spread among so much of units. You can talk about risk bearing economies of scale, right? So all of those are reasons, or in other the types of economies. That's exactly what they're asking as well. Technological economies, right? You can talk about all of those. So you don't have to talk about all six, I would feel. Maybe around 4 to 5, I would feel is a good number to talk about. But remember, you write the thing and let me give a small 1 to 2 line explanation. Just go a little bit more in detail, give a small thing. So technological efficiency is where you can say that firms are able to get the latest technology. So when they are in the long run, they're able to that they can afford and get the latest technology that is out there. So when they get the latest technology, then their production becomes faster, it becomes more efficient. As a result, their cost starts to come down. So Anna, that story is what you will have to get. So that is the economies of scale story. How do they arise? Now, this question has been repeated multiple times. I will not go through that repetition again in the future. The reasons and types are both the same, Lamai. The reasons and the types of economies of scale is the same thing. These are not two things. Okay. Exact same thing. So don't confuse this with, Lamai, like I said, increasing returns to scale. Now, increasing return to scale is a little different. A small explanation is needed. Yes, that's exactly what I also told. Risk-bearing efficiencies is where, Lamai, when you're in the long run, you don't have one product. You might have so many products, right? Now, for example, take a firm like Unilever. A firm like Unilever in Sri Lanka has multiple products. Now, if you take soap also, they have around 5, 6 soap brands, right? Then they have, let's say, different things, right? So they have, let's say, around a product portfolio of around, let's say, 50 to 100 products. So even if, let's say, one of them fail, right, that's not a big risk, no? There is no risk of them closing down and all of that is not there. That is the risk-bearing efficiencies. Because when you're in the long run, you diversify. You have so many options. So even if one of it doesn't work, that's not a problem. But for a small firm, where they have just one product, it fails, whole thing is gone for a 6. That's the story of risk-bearing. Okay, done. Then we go into 2012. Okay. So 2012 variables, again, a very common question. Lama, I want you all to practice this answer, right? I'll improve this answer. This is the answer that I took from the past paper book and typed it. But I want you to have a proper set of answer for a question like this. It's a very highly tested, commonly repeated question that is there. The question is, how does the law of diminishing returns, right? What is the law of diminishing returns? What does it imply about the shape of the short run cost curves? So here what they're asking you is, Lamai, about that mirror image story. Remember that mirror image story? That story is what you need to talk about. So you start off with talking about what is the law of diminishing returns. So what is the law of diminishing returns? Law of diminishing margins tells us in the short run, when you keep on adding more and more variable input, what happens? After a certain point, the average product and marginal product tends to decrease. That is what the law of diminishing returns is telling us. But that is not the question. Question is asking, how does that connect with the cost curves? Now see, law of diminishing marginal returns, Lamai, they only talk about the product curves. No? This is the marginal product. This is the average product. That is what they talk about. But how are you going to connect this to the cost curves? That is where you need to talk about, Lamai, the reflection, the mirror image story. Here, see, short-run cost curves are a reflection of the law of diminishing marginal returns. So you need to, I'm repeating, it's a very commonly tested question. Now, you all will see. Now, I will do the papers. Now, you all will see how many times this same thing gets tested in different ways. They ask the same thing. So you give a small definition for law of diminishing marginal returns, then say, look here, the cost curves are a reflection of this. So then, Lamai, you can draw the diagram. You can draw the diagram and show. So what is the diagram? The mirror image diagram. Remember, marginal product mirrors with marginal cost. So when marginal product is at the topmost point, marginal cost will be at the bottommost. Then when this is intersecting this, you have this intersecting average variable cost. So you can, if you want, put some dotted lines and show when this is at the topmost, this is at the bottommost point. When this is intersecting this is intersecting this. Or even if you don't put the dotted lines, that is okay. Now you need to explain this. So you need to explain, look here, when the marginal cost is increasing, sorry, when the marginal product is increasing, what happens? Marginal cost is decreasing. And then you need to say, when marginal product is at its highest, marginal product is at its highest, topmost point, then marginal cost is at its lowest. Then when marginal product is coming down, marginal cost will increase. And all of that, I put that into one small paragraph saying, look here, this is how marginal product behaves. The marginal cost is a reflection of that. That is how the law of diminishing returns talk about the shape of the short run cost curve. Now the next paragraph, I talk about these two. Talk about the average product and the average variable cost. That also has a connection. So when average product is increasing, average variable cost is coming down. When average product is at its highest, average variable cost is at its lowest. Then when average product starts to come down after a certain point, the average variable cost starts to increase. So put that into another paragraph. And then you can also talk about this number. You can also talk about average marginal product intersects average product at the topmost point. Marginal product cuts average product at the topmost point. And you can say that. Similarly, when this happens, marginal cost will cut average variable cost at the bottommost point. It's more correct to say average variable cost, but you can even connect that to average total cost. That is also okay, but average variable cost is the more correct one to say. So that's what you need to talk about, Laman. You need to give a definition, draw the diagram also if you can, and then if you can, definitely draw the diagram. Right? Draw the diagram and then explain how both of these are reflecting each other. That's how you answer that type of question. Very common thing, that is that. Good choice to choose fourth question. That depends on whether you're good at it. Okay. Total product curve now, you can talk about these two, that is enough. Total product, not essential. Okay. If you want, in addition to this product, talk about the total product. But total product curve and total cost curve, there is no relationship like that. No? So, so even if you don't talk, that's okay. Okay. Then going to the next, 2012 A-levels, question number 3. Now here they're asking you, how do the concepts of accounting profit and economic profit differ? So what do you need to write, Lamai? You need to base your answer based on this story a little. You need to talk about the difference in cost. Okay. So how you can start off it, you can say, how do you find profit? Profit is your total revenue minus your total cost. That is how you calculate profit. But then where does it differ, Lamai? Your profit is, how you find profit is your revenue minus cost. Your revenue minus cost. But if you take an accountant, right, in accounting, we only consider direct cost. For an accountant, cost is only direct cost. But if you take someone like an economist, in economics, Lamai, in economics, cost is not only direct cost, it is direct plus indirect cost, or explicit plus implicit cost. So then that way you need to show how the profit calculation is different. So accounting profit will be total revenue minus direct cost, because for accountant, cost is only direct cost, but for an economist, economic profit will be, Lamai, total revenue minus, you can say, total opportunity cost. So total opportunity cost is direct cost and indirect. So this fellow will deduct direct cost and he will also deduct indirect cost. So both of those are cost for an economic. You can write the equation multiple different ways, But that story is what you need to say. And then, Naman, can you also tell me whose profit is usually higher? You can give that as well. Is the accounting profit usually higher or economic profit usually higher? The accounting profit is usually, we did the MCQ also, no, last week. Because why? An accountant is only deducting direct cost. So he's only deducting a bit. An economist is writing direct and indirect, deducting direct and indirect both. So you can, mention that a little also. So usually if there is an indirect cost, if there is an indirect cost, if there is an indirect cost, then what can you say? Accounting profit will be greater than economic profit. Don't write short forms, Lamai. Write the fuller thing. Yeah, you can say economic profit will be lower. That is also okay. Not an issue. Same thing, no? Okay. So that again is a very simple question. That is that. Accounting profit is direct cost. Yeah, you need to say. So in accounting, they only consider direct cost. So you need to say that. In accounting, they only consider direct cost as their cost. But in economics, they consider direct and indirect cost as their cost. So therefore, when an accountant calculates profit from revenue, he only deducts direct cost. But an economist calculates both of this. Should we tell that accounting? Okay. Show the diminishing question. Ashay, can we write this instead of writing in words? You have to write in words, Lama. I'm just giving the keywords. You can't just jot something like this in your answer. That is where your whole answer writing comes. Because I'm not dictating answer, right? Your answer has to be in a nice paragraph format, nicely explained. I am just explaining the question and giving you the keywords. I'm not dictating answer for you word by word. So don't go and write that in your paper. Write a proper, nice paragraph format broken into things. I'm just giving you the structure. So that, Lamai, your answer writing, again, I'm telling you, it improves, Lamai. It improves the more and more you write, Lamai. So then only you will figure out, okay, then for this many marks, how do I expand and write this? So the more you write, the better you will get. So you can start with, right? How is profit calculated? Revenue minus cost. For a accountant, cost means these things, but for economist, cost is much more advanced, these things. So therefore, an accountant will calculate profit this way, an economist will calculate profit this way, and then you can give a thing like this. You can support it with the equation, no problem, but you need to have a small explanation as well. Management complexity is reason for diseconomies. Will come. There's a question on diseconomies. Okay. Increase returns and economies of scale will come. So increase in returns to scale is Lamai. That is the output side of it. Increasing return scale is where when you increase your input, your output increases by a greater proportion. Increasing scale is the output side of it. Economies of scale is the cost aspect line. So there are two different things. Both are in the long run, right? But it's two different things. Okay, right. Then that part is done. We'll go on to the next one. 2013. Now see, look at this line. In this one, it's the same question as before, but they went a bit more in advance. What did they do? They talked about Lamai Balanna, explain how the law of diminishing returns affect a firm's cost. That is this part. That is exactly this question. How does law of diminishing returns affects a firm's cost? But in addition to that, they have given one more thing. So you can write this exact same thing, but there is a little bit more that you have to write. But not just the law of diminishing returns. They are saying, explain how the law of diminishing returns and the law of returns to scale affect a firm's cost of production. How both of this, not just diminishing returns, the law of return to scale also affects a firm's cost of production. So here you need to talk about the short run story, right? That is the exact one that we wrote before, that marginal product, mirror image, marginal cost, that story you have to write. Then you also have to talk about this, the law of returns to scale. How does that affect the cost? So the first part of it, I'm not explaining Lemma because I explained that just 5 minutes ago. So that part you can give it. So that is the first part of the question, the short run story. Then you come to the long run story. So here, look at this. I am saying in the long run, the production is subject to the law of returns to scale. In the long run, you face law of returns to scale. The U shape of the long run average cost is due to economies and diseconomies of scale. So what is economies of scale? Economies of scale result when an increase in output leads to a decrease in the unit cost. Unit cost means average cost. As quantities are increasing, diseconomies of scale is where what happens? When you produce more and more, where the cost arise when the increase in output leads to an increase in the unit cost. So here, the average cost is coming down. Here, the average cost is increasing. You can talk a little bit about constant return scale as well. That is where your average cost remains constant. So you need to talk about those three stages. If you can draw the diagram there as well and show how the long run average cost initially decreases, then stays flat, and then increases, that could be ID. Yeah. So that's what you do for that question. I'm hoping that part is okay. Remember, you can go a little bit more advanced than what is there in this, right? Now, this is the answer that is there in the marking scheme that I put. Sorry. Going a bit more advanced than this is completely fine and all right. You can draw diagrams, you can give examples if you want. So you need to make your answer much better. When number of input increases, initially AP increases along with reduction in ATC. Not ATC, I would say ABC. Average variable cost and not average total cost. Okay. As the ones that we know. Right. That's 2013. Then we go into the next one, 2015 A levels. So 15 A levels, again, same thing gets repeated. Question 3, part 1. Distinguish between explicit and implicit cost, giving examples for each. So same thing that we did before, Lamai. You can write. So this question is repeated from 2011. Yeah. So skipping that, we discussed half an hour ago. Then 2015, part 2. Right? Question 3, part 2. They're asking you, why do economists regard normal profit as a cost? You know, what constant increasing scale. You can connect to that if you want. That's all right. You can connect that a little. That's fine. Okay. Then, why is normal profit a cost in economics? Now you have a 4-mark question. So first of all, Lamai, what is normal profit? Now talk about what is normal profit. Normal profit is the minimum profit. What is normal profit? That is the minimum profit who expects, an entrepreneur expects for what? For all the things that he does, right? So an entrepreneur bears risk. He introduces his capital. He coordinates all the production activities. So for all that he does, the minimum return that the entrepreneur expects, or the minimum profit that the entrepreneur expects for all activities that he do is what you call normal profit. So give a small intro and start your answer. And then now you need to talk about why is this a cost? Why is it a cost, Laman? That it's a cost because as a business firm, the business should be able to give that entrepreneur that minimum return. If he is not even getting that minimum return, he will not continue business line. Now, it doesn't have to, it's not like a monthly salary. Now, for example, let's say I am doing classes. Now I work also full-time as an economist. With all of that, I'm doing classes as well. Now, it's not easy. And I was not sick also. I was a bit sick also a couple of days ago, but somehow rescheduled a few here and there, and I'm still getting things done. So then for all of this that I'm doing, Lamai, for all the effort that I'm putting, in my mind, I will have no minimum if I get this much Tamai, I will do this. So I will say, okay, minimum if I get, let's say 200,000 a month, only then I will do classes. Classes I'm not going to do class because it's not worth my effort. So if I don't get that, now that doesn't mean that I have to get that as a salary every month, but at least my business should be earning that every month, right? So at least the business should be getting that. So that's why we say, that's why it's the indirect cost. Because if it's a direct payment to the entrepreneur, then that becomes a direct cost. It doesn't have to be a direct monetary payment. But entrepreneurs, he is the owner of the business. So at least the business itself has to be generating that kind of a return. So that's what we say. So we say here, no, this is not the TR equals TC story, Lamai. This is the normal profit under indirect cost, not the total revenue, total cost. So under indirect costs, remember we have normal profit. That is what you're explaining over here. Okay. So then you say, if the entrepreneur does not receive, so if he does not even receive this lamai, what will he do? He will move. He will go into something else. He will provide his entrepreneurship not to this activity. He would switch and go down to something else. He will close this down and he will go into something else. Yes, it represents the effort of the entrepreneur. So if the entrepreneur does not receive this minimum, what will he do, Lamai? Now, if I can't even earn 200,000 by doing classes, what do? I stop doing classes. I will go and put my entrepreneurial effort somewhere else. So that is why, as a business, that the business has to give that entrepreneur that amount of money. At least the business has to generate that amount of money. Otherwise, he will stop and go. That's why it becomes a cost, Lamai. So it's not a direct cost. It's the opportunity cost. You see this? So it's the opportunity cost. This is the opportunity cost of the owner's effort. So owner is putting all of his effort, at least minimum you have to get that. So you can talk about the fact that this is an indirect cost. And also, Lamai, this is a fixed cost. Normal profit is a fixed cost, Lamai. It doesn't change with the level of output. Whether I have 100 students or 1,000 students or 5 students, the minimum profit I expect, Lamai, won't change. My actual profit will change. But the minimum that I expect is not going to change. Minimum I have set in my mind, okay, minimum I have to get 200,000. I'm not going to do classes otherwise. So that's why we call it a fixed cost. So you can put in those points, add in a few things on your own thing as well, and you can write. It's not the TR equals TC thing, Lamai. Then they have to connect it into a firm that is making a firm in perfect competition, earning normal profits. You have to talk about something like that then. Okay. A firm in perfect competition, earning normal profits, then you can explain that TR equals TC, that story. But here, it's not that story. Here you talk about, Lamai, indirect cost, normal profit. Economic rent and normal profit? No, they're not the same. Can't an entrepreneur earn more than the minimum? He can definitely. So he will earn more than the minimum. The minimum that he expects is what you call normal profit. Actually, Lamai, you will earn much more if you're successful. Now, for example, minimum as an entrepreneur for doing all these classes, minimum I want 200,000. But my actual earning might be much more than that. So the minimum is the one that is fixed. That is the minimum that you want. So don't confuse the actual profit that you earn with the minimum profit that you expect. The minimum that you expect will always be fixed. Whether I have 100 or 200 or 500 students, minimum I want this much. Actual what I earn will definitely change. So then that's that thing that you talk about. Then the next one, 2016 A levels, question number 2. So there is also again, I think it should be question number 3, part 2. Explain the relationship between the marginal cost and the average total cost. That's also a very nice question, Lamai. So I'll explain this story to you in very simple words. So you all need to know, Lamai. Now, this is the marginal cost curve. This is your average total cost, average cost. What's the relationship between the two? The relationship between the two is, Lamai, in very simple, there are 3 points. The first point is when when your marginal cost is less than the average total cost, the average total cost will decrease. When marginal cost is less than the average, so you can see on the left side of this diagram, is less than the average total cost decreases. Similarly, when marginal cost is above the average total cost, your average total cost goes up. And then marginal cost equals average total cost Or in other words, it intersects average total cost when average total cost is at its minimum. So that's what you need to talk about in terms of the relationship. But let me explain the logic behind this. Why does this happen? Why does when MC is less than ATC, why does your ATC fall? So for this, I think an example I took in my class also is your term test average, right? In school, your term test average. So most of y'all know, you should know how is your average calculated, Lama? Let's say you're doing the 3 normal subjects. You have accounting, you have business studies, and you have economics. Normal commerce student doing the 3 questions. Now you have done your term exam based on your recent term exam. Now you have got Lamai your accounting mark. So accounting teacher has marked the paper, and you can give a small definition, no problem, right? Accounting teacher has marked the paper, and accounting teacher has given you, right, your mark is 70. Out of 100, you got 70. Then the business studies teacher also has marked your paper and has given you a mark of, let's say, 80. So econ paper lamai, that's the third paper that you have to get your marks for. The teacher has not yet marked the paper. තාම ඒක mark කරලා නැහැ. So right now, based on the 2 subjects that you have got ළමයි, how much is your average mark? තාම econ marks ලැබිලා නැහැ. You have not got econ marks yet. So how much is the average right now? Based on your 2 subjects. Mark sounds so fake. I feel it should be on the high end. Maybe it's too low. How much is your average mark right now? Your average mark right now is 70 plus 80 divided by 2. So right now, Lamai, your average mark is a 75. Okay, your average mark is a 75. Okay, tell me. Okay, now I want you to logically think and right now you have average of 75. If your average is to increase, if your average is to increase, the third subject that you get, the econ marks that you get, has to be what? It has to be more than 75, less than 75, or equal to 75. If you want your average to go up, right now, 2 subjects, your average is 75. So if you want that average to go, let's say, I don't know, to 78, 80, what should happen to that additional mark that you're getting, the marginal, the new mark that you're getting? The new mark that you're getting has to be much higher than 75, right? So let's say the new mark that you got is 90, right? You got 90 marks for new. So 150. Yeah, let's say you got 90, Vilu. You got 90 for this one. So then the new mark that you got, right? The new mark is what you call marginal, the additional. So when your marginal cost, or in our context, marginal mark, is greater than your average mark, now what happens to your average now? Earlier average was 75. Now how much is your average? 70 plus 80 plus 90 divided by 3. Now your average has gone to 80. See, when the new mark, when the additional mark that you're getting is higher than the current average, when the marginal cost, the additional mark you're getting, is higher than the current average, is greater than the current average, what happens? Your average will start to go up. That is the second line over here. When the marginal cost, the additional cost, is greater than the average cost starts rising. It takes some time to think. Same thing, the opposite happens now. Now, what if something happens for econ, you don't get a 90, econ you get a 60. 60 is not we'll make it even worse. Econ you got a 30. Now what happens? Now what happens to your average? Right now you had an average of 75 on the first 2 subjects. Econ paper comes, econ sir is telling you only have 30 out of 100. The marginal mark, the additional mark you got, is well below your average now. Your average was 75, but the new paper only gave you 30. So when the marginal mark that you got is less than your average mark, what happens to your average now? You had an average of 75 for two subjects. Now, when the third subject also got added, now your average is only 60. Average has started to come down. And that is the first point I'm talking about. When marginal cost is less than the average total cost will decrease. So that's the point there. That's the logic behind that. But that takes some time to think. If that's the first time that you're hearing this story. And then when these two are intersecting each other, this will be at its bottommost point. In a lesson, axes are not marked correct, but the diagram may be correct. They might cut marks. So the axis here is the cost axis, this is the output axis. So you need to, what you can also do is give a small definition for what is average cost. So what I will recommend for this is give a small definition for what is average cost, show how it's calculated, give a small definition for marginal cost, show how it is calculated, then talk about this relationship, support your answer with the diagram as well. Then I feel that's a more complete answer that you can give. Okay, right. Just a random question, since we have been talking about marks. How much did you all score in your latest econ term exam mark? I remember so many people talking about term exams recently. How much did you all get? Yes, at least I think with around 4. How much do you have? Around 4 months to go now. At least at around, let's say, a 60. I definitely feel you can push for an A or even much more. At least at around 60. Yes, double digits. That is, if it's not double digits, that is the problem. So yes, maybe if you've gone from single to double, okay, that's not a big improvement, but we'll see, right? So work hard, Lamit, is the last, like I always say, it's the last private people, probably in some class that you go, you get some papers, you can work on those. So what? I think something more than a 60, you should definitely be able to push for an A. But even if you're a little lower than that, you can still definitely push, right? So there is no thing that you can't get that A. Work hard, Lamai. So you just have around 4 months to go. Now, this is the 4th of July, August, September, October, November. So you have a bit more than 4 months to go. You can get that done. Mock exams, I will start in August. Fast track classes in July. One more thing. So fast track classes for July, I'm doing unit number 10, 11, 12, and all the current context of unit 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But what's happening in the country, what kind of questions you can get, right? What is the stories about Trump's tariffs? How is that connecting to our exports? What are the problems there, right? Let's say the economic crisis, how that has now got solved and how the economy is recovering. So all of that is what we will usually be talking about there as well. So if you all are into it, you can join. There should be slots available. Once registrations are open, I'll send you all the details. We will start on the 14th of July. So 14th of July, 4 weeks from then. That's how the month goes. There. Yeah. So when you pay Lama, you get the book as well, and you get the recordings also. So recordings are also there. The book is also there. So even if you miss the live session, the recordings are there on the website. You can watch it unlimited times until A levels. That is that. And so we'll talk about that later. Leave that. Right. Mock exams, we'll see. I'm not finalized. I'll let you know. It will be similar to the fast track. Okay. Then 2016 A levels, question number 3. They're talking about explain the concepts of producer surplus, economic profit, and economic rent. The concepts of these 3. So producer surplus, where do we first learn it? We learn it in unit number 2. So I have given you the definition that we talk about in unit number 2. But there is a bit of a different definition also. If you look at producer surplus is also your total revenue minus your total variable cost. That is also equal to produce surplus. Let me show that story for you. So if you remember the demand and supply graph, in the demand and supply graph, this yellow shaded area that I'm shading now, that is what you call producer surplus. So that is what the minimum, what the producer gets above that minimum, what he expects, that story that. I'm not going there, that is unit number 2. There's another way of calculating that, Lamai, is now if you take this red color box, this red box that is over here, that is what you call, Lamai, total revenue. Producer's total revenue, price into quantity. From this, if you deduct this blue color area, this blue color triangle, that is what you call, Lamai, the total variable cost of the producer, the minimum that he expects. So from that red color box, if you deduct that blue color triangle, you get the yellow shaded producer surplus, right? So that is exactly how this equation is formed. So producer surplus is from your total revenue, you minus total variable cost. Then if that is the case, what is economic profit? Economic profit is where, Lamai, from your, yes, you can join the fast track, Lamai. I'll send details on the class. Okay. Yeah, trapezium, triangle, that's not an issue. So how do you find economic profit? From your total revenue, Lamai. From your total revenue, you minus variable cost and you also minus the fixed cost. Economic profit can, Lamai, total revenue minus total cost. So total cost is fixed and variable. So can you see there is a small connection there? It's tested again in other paper also. So the difference between producer surplus and economic profit is equal to, Lamai, your fixed cost. In producer surplus from total revenue, you only minus variable cost. To calculate economic profit, you minus variable cost and the fixed cost. So the difference between these two will be equal to, Lamai, your total fixed cost. You need to have that in mind. And then what is economic rent then? Now, economic rent is, Lamai, that is in the factor market. So economic rent is, right, that is the minimum return a factor of production. Sorry, not the minimum. What a factor of production earns above their minimum return. Now, here, Lamai, this is the goods market. No? This is the goods market. You have the demand for a good, supply for a good, what the producer gets in addition to that. But if you take, Lamai, economic rent, you have the same diagram, but this is in the factor market. So in the factor market, you have the supply of the factor of production, demand for the factor of production. So what the factor of production earns above their minimum expected, that is what you call economic rent. Remember economic rent transfer earnings. And you need to talk about that as well. They're not exactly the same. Produce surplus doesn't mean economic profit. Economic profit doesn't mean economic rent. They are different concepts, but it looks kind of the same. That is why they have given you this question asking you to show this. Revenue minus explicitly, you can, but since you're talking about producer surplus, you talk about variable and fixed rather than explicit and implicit. Right? But you earn above your transfer earnings. Correct. That is what that is. No, only the equations, Lamai, you're not going to get full marks. So you need to put that now. Since the question says explain, Lamai, so you can't just write the equations and expect to get the full. Sorry, yeah, in this one, S and H, sorry. So this is the supply curve. This is the demand curve. Okay. Someone has been mindful. Good. Your equation of economic rent, you can take total factor earnings. So if you want to make an equation for economic rent, Lamai, this red color box here is total factor earnings. Right? So from total factor earnings, Lamai, if you minus this blue color one is called transfer earnings. So if you remove transfer earnings, then you can get economic rent. If you want, you can give an equation like that. Why is economic profit deducted? Economic profit is your profit. No? That is your total revenue minus your total cost. That is what you call economic profit. From your total revenue, you remove all your cost. So all your cost means your variable cost and your direct variable and your fixed cost. The axis, this is the price axis. This is the quantity axis. This is the You can call it the wages, factor market term, and this is the quantity. Just that. Okay. Right. So have the story clear. Done. Guys, again, I'm repeating. Guys, try the questions out and come. Don't just look at my face when I'm explaining them. This is the first time that you're seeing. If this is the first time that you're seeing this question, my explanation here is going to be too fast. Okay. You need to do the question at home and come. When I'm explaining, you look at why did it go wrong? What happened? Why is saying this? Why have I written this? Under that type of questions, ask Lavai. So if you are trying to do the question with me right now, when I put it on the screen, you're soon trying to write, that doesn't help, Lavai. That is not going to improve your answer writing. For you to work on your answer writing, Lavai, write and come, because that's why I give you a week's time. I don't do all the classes at a stretch and finish off. I give you 1 week, Friday. We haven't had a lot of extra classes also. I'm giving you a 1 week for you to do the questions and come, because otherwise there is no point, Lamai. That's the thing. There were some questions. Can we say produce surplus is related to economic trend? Not really. The area might be the same, but produce surplus is in the goods market. That's what a producer earns about this. Economic rent is what a factor of production earns, something like labor. So usually in a factor market, we'll consider labor. So that's why we take wages. Depicted by the same area that how do we find the area for economic rent? Economic rent is that yellow shaded area on top, Lama. This yellow shaded area here. That's economic rent. This is there, Lama, in your unit 4 tute at the end, where you talk about factor market. You talk about something called transfer earnings, all of that. Total fixed cost, Lama, is not in the diagram. In this diagram, you can't show total fixed cost. Okay. Moving to the next. 2017 A levels, question number 3, part 1. See, can you see same question repeated? How does the law of diminishing returns relate to the shape of a firm's short-run cost curves? Remember that answer format I gave you. So first define what is law of diminishing returns. Then say, look here, this is a reflection. Then talk about how the marginal product, marginal cost are reflecting, how average product and average variable cost are reflecting. Draw the two mirror image diagrams and explain the story. Same thing. This is the third time that this thing has been tested. First it came, second time it came with the long run itself in 2013. Now again in 2017, it's coming in. So from 2011 to 2017, 3 years. From the 6 years, 3 years, this question came. We will see if that is in the future as well. Then the next one. What happens to the difference between average total cost and average variable cost as the firm expands in the short run? Explain. Now you got to give a 4-mark thing. So I would recommend to draw a diagram as well. So what happens to that difference? The difference between, now this is your average total cost. This is your average variable cost. What happens? What happens to the gap between the two? The gap between the two decreases. But that is not enough to write for 4 marks, right? So the gap between the two reduces. The difference between the two reduces. But now you can't write that and expect them to give you 4 marks. So now you have to explain, Lama. How do you explain? So first you start off with saying, what is that gap, Lama? What is the gap between the average total cost and the average variable cost? The gap between those two is the average fixed cost, not the total fixed cost. It's the average fixed cost. So you can say, Lamai, average total cost is the addition of average variable and average fixed cost. So you write in sentence, say that this is the source. Then you can say, therefore, the gap. So they are asking you the difference. The difference between average total cost and average variable cost is the average fixed cost. And then you can talk a little bit about average fixed cost level. So you can say, in the short run, when you produce more and more and more, what happens? The average fixed cost will continuously decrease. It will continuously keep coming down. Remember the average fixed cost, maybe? The AFC, if you can put that also in here. average fixed cost will continuously decrease. So ideally in this diagram, okay, if I am to show you properly, this distance should equal to this distance. This distance here should equal to this distance, because the distance is the average fixed cost. So this gap between here should be equal to this gap. So the lesser and lesser your AFC goes, the gap between those two has to keep on reducing. If you want, you can easily draw that and show. So then in the short run, the average fixed cost will continuously decrease as more and more is produced, but will never be zero. It will never be zero. Why it is never zero? Because there is always a total fixed cost. So therefore, what happens? The gap between these two, the gap between the average total cost and the average variable cost will also reduce, but the gap will never be zero. In other words, they will never intersect. The average total and average variable will never touch each other. They will never intersect. Easy way for you to remember this is like you and your crush. That's what I would have told in class as well. So along the 2 years, you keep on getting closer, but you never get into a relationship. You'll never touch each sad ending to your love story. Because there is always that other guy who is in the middle. That's the average fixed cost. Because that guy is never out of the scene. What happens? You get closer and closer, but you will never meet. Remember it that way if you want. That's the story of average total cost and average variable cost. Right. Done. That's 2017. Can we say the ATC takes shape of the AVC? It doesn't really take the exact shape of the AVC. It's not exactly the same shape. So even if you see the diagram that I have driven, right, you have, this is like a nice U that becomes like initially the gap is wider. That is both are U-shaped, but it's not exact. It's not like this and this neve. It's not one under the other neve. Initially the gap is wider and it gets small. So I would not recommend to say that it takes a shape of this. You can say total cost takes a shape of variable cost. That is correct. But don't say that average variable and average total take the shape of each other. We need to talk about fixed cost. Fixed cost. I'm not very sure what the question is. Okay. That's 2017. We can say about AFC. Yeah, AFC you can say continuously reduces, but don't say that the shape is based on the shape here. Never. Don't have to talk about that. Can we say that AFC shrinks due to spread among units? Yes, correct. The more and more you produce, your total cost gets divided among a higher output. So as a result, average fixed cost continuously decreases. Done. Then 2017, question number 3. How would each of the following affect average total cost and average variable cost? Okay. So here, Lama, you need to first figure out each of these, what are these type of costs? So shall we quickly do that first? A reduction in electricity. Electricity, Lama, variable cost or fixed cost? Does it change with the level of output or is it fixed regardless of whatever output you produce? What can you say? Electricity is a variable or fixed? Quickly. Electricity is it's a variable cost, right? So then, remember, electricity doesn't change with, it changes with the level of output, Lamai. Now take a factory that is producing, Lamai, let's say 100 t-shirts. Compare it with a factory that is producing 100,000 t-shirts. Definitely, electricity cost is going to be different. So electricity is a variable cost. Variable cost. Variable cost. Reduction in the wage rate. Wages are a variable cost. Increase in the CEO salary. CEO salary is a fixed cost. CEO salary doesn't change with the output. And then increase in the cost of rent. Rent is a fixed cost, right? So we figured that out. So now we need to figure out how does each of these affect your average total cost and your average variable cost. Part 1, first one, a reduction in the price of electricity. So electricity, they have reduced the prices. What will happen now? Wages are variable now. Salaries are fixed. Wages are what you daily pay for your workers. So if the electricity prices go down, average total cost will come down, and electricity is a variable cost. Therefore, average variable will also come down. So you can say decrease and decrease. Then B, reduction in the wage rate. Same, no? Wages go down, average total cost comes down, wages are variable, so variable cost will also come down. C, increase in the salary of the CEO. If CEO salary, that is a fixed cost. So fixed cost goes up, your average total cost will go up. But will your average variable cost increase now? Total cost will go up, yes, because that's a fixed cost. But will your variable cost increase? No, that's this thing. So this one will be constant. It's not going to change. And then part D, increase in the rent, same thing. Average total cost will go up, but variable cost will stay constant. So see, they have given you like A and B as same, C and D as the same. So you can say AFC increase if you want. So if you want to give a AFC here, you can say AFC increases. Here also AFC increase. Average fixed cost goes up, but they are not asking about average fixed cost. So you don't have to go into giving those. So see, now they would have like they're trying to play a trick on your head also. Yes, this is the exam that I did. I did this question. I did question number unit number 4. So can you see they're trying to play a trick on you now? Now usually you will start thinking twice. No? The first two answers are exactly the same. The next two answers, C and D, is also exactly the same. Now the students are thinking, can't be, no? How come you are getting the same answer? Then you go and make a change somewhere. So they try to play mind games with you. Be a little careful. If you're sure of it, don't go and change that. Then 2018. 2018 question number 3. They're saying, state whether the following statements are true or false and give reasons for your answer. 8 marks. Now, these questions are like almost 3 marks now, but you need to know the whole thing. Wages are variable, yes, salaries are fixed, correct. So, A, total product starts falling when diminishing return sets in. Yes, I did LLs in 2017. Is that correct or not? True or false? Will total product fall in diminishing returns? Diminishing returns is the second stage. That is false. So now you have to give a reason. So you can say, when will the total product fall? So you can say in diminishing returns, total product is increasing, but at a slower rate. It is increasing, but at a slower rate. And then in negative returns, that is where your total product starts to fall. Okay, so you can talk about that. You can say in diminishing returns, look here, total product doesn't fall. In negative returns, that is where total product starts falling. So that's the reason that you can give. In small 2 lines, then don't go into very much detail. Then B, property taxes, building insurance, and amortization payments are fixed cost. Yes or no? Are they fixed costs? Fixed cost means doesn't change with the level of output. TRP falls in negative margins. Yes, correct. You can go a little bit more in detail. So this is correct, right? This is true, Lamai. So if you take all of this, what is amortization? Amortization payments can your loan installments. So your property taxes, your building insurance, loan installments, all of those don't change with the level of output. Now, whether I have 5 students or 10 students in my class or 100 students, the amount I pay as insurance will be fixed. The amount I pay as property taxes will be fixed. The amount that I had to pay as my loan installment will be fixed. So you can say fixed. That's why I said amortization is your loan installment. So true, you can say why? Because these costs do not change. They do not change with the level of output. Change with the level of output. It does not change. Part A again, so part A is saying total product falls when there is diminishing returns. Now, diminishing returns is the second stage, right? So if you all remember the 3 stages of the law of diminishing returns, total product doesn't fall in the second stage. Total product falls in the third stage when you have negative returns. So you have to say that is false. In diminishing returns, total product is still increasing, but at a slower rate. Where does it fall? It falls when you come to negative returns. That is where it falls. So that's why you're giving the reason. Okay. Right. Then part C. Diminishing returns and decreasing returns scale are different ways of saying the same thing. Yes or no? Again, false, right? So now here you need to say, like, this is the short run, this is the long run. Give a small explanation. So what is diminishing returns? Diminishing returns is where in the short run, what happens? Your marginal product and average product is starting to come down. That's a diminishing. That's the second stage there. Then what is the decreasing return scale? Decreasing return scale is where in the long run, when you increase your input, your output increases by a smaller proportion. That is what this one is. So you can talk about that there. Then the last one, when marginal cost is above average variable, as that connection holds here as well. Average variable and average total cost is the same. The relationship is the same. So they are saying when marginal cost is above the average variable cost or average total cost, that's okay. What are they saying? They're saying marginal cost must be falling. Is that correct? If marginal cost is above average total cost, it has to be rising. It doesn't fall. So then false, right? If it is above, it keeps rising. So then you say that, look here, the reason for this is when marginal cost is above average total cost, marginal cost is rising. It's not falling. That's the reason that you can get. So I feel my question like this. Now for this, you need to know the overall unit. But I feel it's an easy 8 marks to actually get. It might not be the easiest Baba type way, but at least you don't have to write paragraphs. You have to say whether it's true or false. Give the reason. Reason can be like 2 lines. That's enough. So that kind of question, this 8-mark question, you can even finish in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, you can write. So then in 5 minutes, you can get 8 marks. And also, do this, right? I'll give you all the strategies and all, how to select questions and all. I'll tell you all, give you all more into detail when we do the final seminar. Final seminar, I will most likely do it around 1 to 2 weeks before the exam with predicted questions and all of that we'll do it there. There I'll give you this, how you select questions, how to time, how do you manage, strategize the whole thing. But when you have your timing also, what I've told you is for 1 mark, try to allocate around 1.5 minutes. So that way, you end up doing the 3-hour paper in 2.5 hours. But then I'll tell you what you can do with that and all. We'll plan that out. Am I doing the full paper? Full paper, this one? Yes. This one, and we are doing the next one also. If I'm referring to the past paper, full paper, yes. Year-wise full papers, we will do the year-wise full papers. That will happen in the mock exam series. Not that I will discuss those. You all will do, I will mark and give. Along with in the mock exam series, you will have 1 paper from me, my own paper. That's a very hard one. Plus, you will have 1 full past paper to do. So every year you will be doing, every week you will be doing 2 full papers. You will keep on doing. You will do around 16 to 20 papers until A levels. With that, you will be well on track. Okay. So coming 2019, they're saying distinguish between explicit and implicit cost. What are some of your explicit and implicit cost of attending school? Now, the first part is okay, and we have done that now. Can you all tell me this? Of attending school. So you're going to school. What are your explicit cost? That means what are your direct cost? What are your indirect cost? It has to be a cost. There has to be a this thing. So what is explicit? Explicit could be my school fees. Definitely school fees. Right. Then transport. What could be your indirect cost? Sleep is okay, but I would give sleep as a very good example. A foregone salary, I would give as a good example. Now, if not for going for work after, now for A-levels, if not for going for A-level school, instead of that, you could have gone and worked somewhere. So you can talk about a foregone salary. A foregone salary, you could have gone and done something. So maybe, what else? Foregone interest, not really. I don't think you are having any interest involved there. What else? Entertainment, fine. Personal study time, leisure time. Okay, fine. You can even give time limit, right? So the time that you would have spent on maybe leisure, on studying at home, right? All of that you would have had to this. So, you know that. The streams that you select, I won't again give it this one. Opportunity cost of doing another course, yes, that could have been given. So indirect cost, opportunity cost of doing, let's say, maybe you could have done a degree. Maybe without doing A levels, you could have done, let's say, like a foundation program and done a degree. That's what people who fail O levels do. You fail O levels, a foundation, you do the degree. So maybe something like that. So doing a degree early. So you can give things like that as indirect cost. So, okay. Right. That's 2019. Yes, after finishing 4, I'll go to 5. Then am I coming into 2020? So we have a few more questions. We'll try to do this soon, and then I'll give you all a break. Okay, I'll do 20 and give you all a break. Or do you want a break now? We'll take a break now if you want. No problem. We have around 8 more questions. Okay. So how long of a break you all want? 8 minutes? It's 8:17. So we'll take a break until around 8:25. So we have around 8 minutes, walk around and get some water and come. And then we'll get into this 2020 onwards. Take a break. Okay, so we'll get started Lama, with the next part of it. That is the 2020 paper. Okay, so we'll try to finish as soon as possible so that we can call it off. So the 2020 paper, question number 2. The second question says, what are the reasons for economies of scale and diseconomies of scale? So the reasons, Lama, economies of scale, and we went through the reasons. No? You can talk about the different things like what? The different, the can't see the shared screen. Guys, can you see the screen? Can, right? Shared screen, yes. Can, right? Okay. Right. So reasons for economies of scale, Lama, is the same thing that we have learned before. What are the things? That is the technological economies, the managerial economies, financial. So that I did not type it. So for economies of scale, Lama, what we wrote before, remember we had a 6-mark question. So you can talk about those. Right? The managerial, technology, financial, risk bearing, purchasing, marketing, right? All of that you can give. And then what are the reasons, Lamai, for diseconomies of scale? Now, economies of scale is where your average cost is coming down. We have discussed that. Then what are the reasons for diseconomies of scale? That is where your average cost is actually starting to go up. What could be the reasons for this? So here, what can we give, Lamai? So I've taken the answer from the marking scheme itself. So things like, Lamai, 1, managerial problems. That is what you call managerial inefficiencies, where, now you're so big. Now your managers also, it's very hard for them to coordinate. To handle these managers, you might need another manager. So it becomes very difficult then. That's an issue. Then advantages of bulk buying would have disappeared, Lamai. Because why? Because now you might not have that much of inputs. Now, for example, think, now if I'm printing tutes, Lamai, now if I print, let's say around 1,000 tutes, I might get advantage. I can reduce from my printing guy. But what if I'm printing, Lamai, 500,000 tutes? Now my printing guy might not have capacity, no? My printing guy will say, sir, mechara handle karan amaru, sir. We then to transport it, if I normal transport it with a truck, now I might have to buy my own lorry to transport 500,000. So it becomes difficult. That's why we are saying the advantages of even bulk buying might start disappearing if you become so big, right? That is purchasing diseconomies. You go the opposite way. And then even this, even if you take, Lama, your what? Production facilities, Lama, when you're very big, your employees, Lama, they don't even know each other. Employees don't even know the boss. Now, that is something that I actually don't like a lot, Lama. Now, especially in the firm that I work. So you all know I work in an econ firm. Our firm is small, Lama. We only have around 20 people, right? It's a small firm and all 20 people are very close to each other. Right? There is no, there is no sir and madam and that type of calling, and there's nothing like that. So everyone's very close, right? From CEO to the heads to all of them. You're just very close. You're just like friends. So that way, Lama, you also feel motivated. You also feel, you feel very valued. You also want to work. But that's not the case, Lama, in a very big firm. Now think of a firm like MAS, one factory, one lady working in a factory who is sewing garments. She doesn't even know who the CEO is. She doesn't even know who sometimes her head might be. There's so much of people, then that becomes Lamai a demotivating factor. So that could be another reason. Then also Lamai transport costs can start to go up because now you have so much of branches, not just 5, 10 branches. You have like 100, 200 branches. So transporting will become expensive. And also you might have Lamai industrial disputes, and it will be very hard for you to manage your industrial relations. People will start fighting, they will start protesting, they will Lamai run strikes. So all of that can start happening. So those could actually push your average cost up. So just giving a small point, I would say, is not enough. Let me give a small 1 to 2 line point. That would be better in that. You don't have to explain very much in detail. A small 1 to 2 line point should be okay. You can talk about that's the inefficiency part only. So for example, first one is managerial inefficiencies. Second one is purchasing inefficiencies. Third one is sorry, they will not have a direct one there. So you can talk about inefficiencies, but I would prefer something like this also, because the marking scheme has points like this. Inefficiency is also okay. That's what I would have given in my tute. But that itself is not 100% clear. What is the inefficiency? So this, I think, is more clear, and you can give a point like this. Yes, you can talk about technology inefficiencies where your machinery and all will now start getting depreciated. Those kind of issues start coming. You can talk about this. Right. Then going in the next part, 2020 part 3. Look at this. What is the relationship between economic profit, producer surplus, and fixed cost? I showed you all this before. So you need to show how is producer surplus calculated. That is total revenue minus what? Total variable cost. How do you calculate economic profit? That is total revenue minus total variable cost and total fixed cost. Then you need to say, look here, the difference between these two is fixed cost. So from your producer surplus, if you minus fixed cost, you should get my economic profit. You can write that equation that way as well, no? Because producer surplus is what? Producer surplus is your total revenue minus your total variable cost. So then from that, if you minus fixed cost, you get the same thing, no? So you can write it that way. For 3 marks, same story that you explained before. Talk about what is economic profit, talk about what is producer surplus, show that the difference between the two is the fixed cost. And then you can write an equation like this also and say, from producer surplus, if you deduct fixed cost, you can get something called economic profit. Same thing, they twist it around multiple ways and they ask. Principal agent problem, that is a separate story. Principal agent problem that usually happens with the shareholders and the directors. That's, I know, it's not in econ though. Not very sure. Maybe I'll take it after class if you want. Not to this unit and not for this. Maybe you can have a little bit about principal agent maybe in Diseconomies, but that's not a big issue. Then define the concept of normal profit. So here also, what does normal profit mean? That indirect cost story. Remember, we wrote an answer for 4 marks. So you talk about what is normal profit, Lamai. It's the minimum profit the entrepreneur expects for all the activities that he does, for bearing his risk, providing his labor, coordinating all the activities, the minimum that he expects. If he doesn't even get this minimum, then he would switch his entrepreneurial effort to something else. So that's normal profit. Define that story for around 2 marks. Done. Then 2021. Classify the following expenditure into fixed and variable cost. So can you give me an answer? It's a very easy one. Raw materials, fixed or variable? Raw materials is variable. It changes with the level of output. Rent on the building rent, fixed. Interest on borrowings is fixed. It doesn't change with the level of output. Something like fertilizer. Think of your agricultural farm. it changes. No? The more you cultivate, more you have to spend on fertilizer. It's a variable cost. So just stating whether they are fixed or variable, you get 4 marks. That's an easy question. They have not even asked for reasons. They have not asked for anything. Just state. Done. Then the next one, 2022. 22, question number 2. Question number 2 says, Jayanta currently works as a lawyer at a legal consultancy firm, earning a monthly salary of 250,000. Interest will vary on the loan amount, but that is not the definition for variable cost. Now, then building rent will also vary based on the building that you take. A small building will have a small rent. So whether it's a fixed cost or a variable cost now, it depends on, does it change with the level of output you produce? If it changes with the level of output, you call it variable. If it doesn't change with the level of output, you call it fixed. Now, if I have taken a loan to do my classes, let's say I took a loan to buy my laptop and all to do this class. So whether I have 5 students, 10 students, 100 students, 1,000 students, my loan interest that I pay won't change. It won't change based on my output. So we call it fixed. So definitely, yes, the more loan you take, the interest will change. But that is not how you classify. Right? Does it change with the level of output or not? Yes, changes the level of output, variable. Doesn't change the level of output, then you call it fixed. Okay, right. Then in this story, you have Jayanta. Jayanta is working at a legal consultancy firm, earning 250,000, and is considering to start his own legal consultancy firm, where he expects to earn 300,000 per month. Right. Then he would need a new office to run his own firm and a clerk. He has found that the office rents for 50,000. Further, he could hire a clerk for 40,000. If these figures are accurate, what will Jayanta's economic profit be? Now, what is economic profit, Laman? Economic profit is his total revenue minus his direct and his indirect cost. No? So minus his direct cost and also minus his indirect cost. Right. So can you tell me, Lama, if Jayanta starts his own firm, how much does he earn as revenue? If he starts his own firm based on the paragraph, where he expects to earn a 300,000 a month. So if he starts his own firm, Lama, he can earn 300,000. That will be his firm's revenue. Then what are his direct costs? His direct cost is, Lama, when you get inputs from outside the firm. You have 50,000 for office rent. You have 40,000 for a clerk. So then the direct cost is the 50,000 and the 40,000. Both of these are direct cost. Yeah, I'll write both of it together. And then what is your indirect cost now? Indirect cost here, you will have a foregone income, no? Don't you think? He has to, right now, he's already earning 250,000. He has to stop that job only and come here now. So then there is a foregone income of 250,000. So then how much is his economic profit? From 300,000, you minus direct cost 90,000, minus indirect cost 250,000, you get economic profit of how much? A minus 40,000. So it doesn't make sense for him, Lamai. It's a minus 40,000. So that is his economic profit. Now you need to explain the answer, Lamai. You need to show this working and put this into a nice explanation as well. So you can say economic profit is this minus this minus this. Yes, that's a loss, right? So his total revenue would be the 300,000. His direct cost is the cost of the office rent and the clerk. That is this. His indirect cost will be his foregone salary. That is the 250,000. Therefore, his economic profit would be a minus 40,000. In other words, he makes an economic loss. Now, that is, again, Lamai, this story is a bit of a life advice for you as well. Because now that's the difference between an accountant and an economist. In accounting, if you wanted to calculate profit, you would have looked at our revenue to 300,000, cost is 90,000, direct cost. I'm making a profit of 210,000. And you're like, Marune, I'm making a profit of 210,000. You'll definitely go ahead with that. But what you will not think of is, you're also giving up on something else and only coming here. That foregone income, you don't think of in accounting. Now, for example, one more thing that so many of y'all ask me is this, right? So many people ask me, so why don't you do a physical class? Now I tell them, look here, I only have an online class because I work full time as an economist as well. I really love that job. All of that is there. That's why I'm not doing a physical class. I totally know that if I do a physical class, that would be definitely much more profitable. But as an if I'm calculating accounting profit, I will just think, physical class, okay, I will have this much students. These are my cost. This can be my profit. But only making the decision based on that is not enough. Because if I'm to do a physical class, then I might have to, let's say, give up on my job income. So I have to think of what is my foregone income there. I have to think of that. And also, it's not just the income itself, it's what you like to do in life. No? Life is not always about money. And that's one more advice that I want all of you all also, Lamai, at any point in life, right? You need to you need to, Lamai, figure out, you need to draw a line, Lamai. For anything that you do, learn to draw a line. It's not about comparing yourself with anyone else. That is because the moment you start comparing yourself with anyone else, what happens is there is always someone better than you. Now, if I start comparing myself with, let's say, econ teachers or other tuition teachers, there might be a teacher who has more students than me. Right? I don't know. So my 25 batch, I have close to around paid people. There's close to around 350 people right now in the past track. That's the number that I have. But there might be another teacher, maybe a econ teacher who has more students than me. I don't know. I don't want to know. But if I start comparing, then what happens? The moment I start comparing them, it's always a competition. I try to get one fellow, then now there's another guy more than me. Then I have to get that fellow also. That doesn't happen now. Even if you're trying, then maybe econ, if I am the highest person, then I'll say, then business studies. This business studies teacher has more than me. Now I want more. So when you start competing, when you start comparing yourself, life becomes so horrible that you will never be happy with whatever you get. Now, even that's the whole point of even your island ranks. Your island ranks, your level based to get a good rank. That's all right. But what happens is sometimes you might be the second in the island. You might be the second in the island, but you still be sad. Why? Because you're competing to become the first. You're like, you don't think of how great you are. You don't think of, wow, I'm the second in the island. But the thing that runs in your head is, I could have become first. So having some sort of competition in life is okay, but don't make that your whole thing. Life itself is not a competition. Right? You can use some competition to motivate yourself. That's all right. But don't make whole life a competition itself. Because the moment you make life a competition, what happens is there is always someone better than you. So unless you become the first in the island for LLs, you will never be happy. Maybe if you become first in the island, you will compare the Z score and see with the previous year person. You will see, I am first in the island, but I have a Z score of 2.5. Last year, first in the island had a Z score of 2.9. Then you will still be sad. So it's not about competition. You need to be happy with what you have, Lama. You need to know that drawing that line is a very important thing in life. So I am not the expert of that, but I am trying my level best to do that. Now know, I personally know that if I do a physical class, I can earn much more than what I'm earning in my job. I'll be very honest with that. I'm not going to talk about how much I earn in my job, but I can earn much more than what I do in my job. I can definitely do that. But personally, I don't want to do that because that's not what I really like to do. So you need to have that balance. Now, life is not always about money, 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 money. Life is about, you need to enjoy life. You need to do something that you like. And especially now, if I wanted, now usually my weekends, I keep it free. Now, you all can see now today is a Friday night. No? So my classes are on weekday nights. I work on weekday daytime. So my Saturday, Sunday, I usually keep it free apart from like a small extra class or something. And even I have a doubt clearing session for the fast track people. That's also early morning. I put it early morning so that my entire day doesn't get blocked for anything. So I keep that Saturday, Sunday free for me so that I can, have fun. I can do whatever I want. If I really wanted, I can start at a physical class in the weekend. Maybe while having my job, I can do a physical class on the Saturday and Sunday as well. But it's not really that. It's about finding that balance. If you're happy with what you have, you don't have to always keep chasing for more. If I am happy with the income that I am getting, right? I get so many calls from different people, sir, institutes. So, sir, අපි මෙහෙම ළමයි හොයලා දෙන්නම්, we'll do this, we'll do that for you, sir. Come and do විලු. අරකයි මේකයි. I'm like, fine, right? I agree with all your points, but I don't want that much. I am okay. I'm happy with what I have. I'm content with what I have. Maybe, yes, my online classes, I still feel it can get a little better, but I feel that's okay. So it's always finding that balance at any point in life. Whenever you all go out there working, try to understand that life is not a competition. It's not a race. You don't have to do things faster than anyone else. Now, people my professional qualifications, some people might take 1 year to finish. You might take, let's say, 4 or 5 years to finish. Now, for example, I did SIMA. Right? So I did SIMA. Now, even this Inspire that is partnering with me for this past paper class of yours. Some of those lecturers were people who taught me as well. But I did not finish SIMA in 2 years. While after A-levels, I started SIMA in around 2018. I finished SIMA somewhere around in 2022. Because after A-levels, yes, I started SIMA. I was doing classes also at uni. I was involved in so much of things, was a part of Road Tract. I was the president there at the club at uni. So with so much of things there, right? And local uni, nice experience. I enjoyed uni, right? I took all the opportunities that were out there. You'll never get that chance again. So at Colombo Uni, I got that thing. And then as a result, I finished SIMA late. But I had people from my batch, first year itself, when they were coming to uni, they had finished SIMA. Good for them, right? I'm proud of them. But just because they have finished SIMA, that shouldn't be something that forces me to do it fast. So I take my time and I get it done. You might have finished in 1 year. I will take my time and I'll get it done. So that doesn't mean you just waste your time and all of it. Never. But you do things according to what suits you. You don't have to do something right? Because this guy is doing it this way, I should also do it this way. There's nothing like that. So you need to get that done that way. I was a prefect in school as well. So that's finding that balance, and that is where life becomes nice. You become happy in life, because sometimes no matter how much of money and how much of things you have, you might not be happy because you're always chasing for something that you can never achieve. So be at one point realize that this is what I want. It might not be the luxurious life out there, but I'm happy now. Even for this thing, something that so many people want now. So many people from uni or from my batch have started going abroad, right? Because in Sri Lanka, sometimes there's a limit that you can start earning initially. Abroad, you might go. Sri Lanka, if you stay in Sri Lanka, you can definitely do much better. But initially, it's a little hard in Sri Lanka to get a very high level of income. So then what happens? People easily go abroad. Then for me, my argument was, fine, yes, I know if I can go abroad, I can earn much more. But I don't want that much more. I'm okay. I want to wait in Sri Lanka. My family is there. My parents are there, right? I want to live with them. I want to, because when you go abroad, you're all alone, isolated. Yes, you get more money. I agree. But I don't want to sacrifice that. So learn to have that balance. Life is not always money, and so that's connecting back to Jayant's story. Just think of, when you're doing certain things, think of so many things, not just the direct cost. Think of all the indirect cost also that you might have. Yes. What was the thing? Is custom revenue surpassing 1 trillion? Custom revenue is 1 trillion. Total revenue will come close to around, I think, around 4.5 trillion. Should be custom. I don't think already it would have not come to 1 trillion. Maybe for the entire year, it could come close to 1 trillion. Can't remember the breakdown of how much of this. Okay. Okay. So 2022, the next one. Now, this question is not directly from this one, but since I have put it in this tute, I will explain this. Okay. This question, actually has to come in the last focus area for unit number 4. So, but I will explain because you all have learned unit 4, and that's okay. So they're saying, assume a perfectly competitive firm, right? Affect perfectly competitive paddy market. These are not fins, this has to be firms. So firms in the market are producing paddy, but are currently incurring losses. If you all remember, Lamai, the story of a firm in perfect competition can face 4 different situations. They can earn supernormal profits, they can earn normal profits, they can incur a loss but still continue, they can incur a loss and shut down. So here, Lamai, they are facing the third situation. That is, they are incurring a loss, but they are still continuing production. Okay. So first one is saying, compare the price of paddy with the firm's average total cost, average variable cost, and the marginal cost. What can you tell about? If you compare the price with the average total cost based on this, the firm is making a loss. Therefore, price will be more or less or equal to average total cost. They're making a loss. The firm is currently incurring losses. So they're currently incurring losses. Your price that you're getting has to be less than average total cost. Why? The firm is earning losses. Then what can you tell about the price and the average variable cost now? They're incurring losses, but they are still continuing to produce. Incurring losses, but still continuing. No? So still continuing, and even though they can't cover their total cost, they're at least covering variable. No? So the price could be either greater or equal to, it could be equal also, greater or equal to average variable cost. Why? Because they are still continuing production. Yeah. Because they're continuing production, you can say that, look here, this is this. And then what if you compare price with marginal cost level? What can you say there? A firm that is trying to maximize profits will always produce at a point where price, or in others, price is also called your marginal revenue. It will be equal to marginal cost. Price will be equal to marginal cost because you always produce at the point where MR equals MC. You might be making a supernormal profit, normal profit, you might be making a loss, but no matter where you are produced, what situation you are in, you always produce at a point where MR equals MC. That is your equilibrium level of output. So the price will be equal to marginal cost because a firm will always produce at its profit maximizing, or you can say loss minimizing level of output. So it will be equal to each other. Then that's part A. Now part B is saying, draw two graphs side by side to reflect the current situation in the market and for the typical firm. So current situation for the market and for the typical firm. Can we choose third question, not choosing fourth one? You can. So those are two separate questions. If you want to do third one, you can do third one. If you want to do fourth, you can do fourth. They're two different questions. Okay. Right. So the market, if you take the market one is easy draw. So market demand, market supply. This is the demand curve. This is a supply curve in the market. Then based on this, you have the price. Now this price is the one that the firms will be taking. So firms are price takers. So this is the individual firms demand curve, which is also the price line, which is also the MR, which is also the average revenue. Then this is your marginal cost. Okay. Now the interesting part is, where do you draw the average cost and the average variable cost? Can you tell me this? Where will I draw my average cost? Firm is incurring a loss. So average cost will be, does it have to be greater than the price or less than the price? Based on your answer in part A. Based on answer in part A, it has to be greater. That's why you're making a loss. So average cost will be somewhere around here. See, it's much higher than your price. That's why you're making a loss. But what about your average variable cost? Even though you're making a loss, you're still continuing. You're continuing. So therefore what? Therefore, It either has to be, either you can draw it at equal levels like this, or you can draw it at a little lesser level. That is also fine. Equal or less. Both of it is correct. So that's average variable cost. So that's the diagram. For drawing this diagram properly, labeling this is the price axis, this is the quantity, this is the price slash cost axis, this is the output axis, properly labeling this, you get your mark. So you can show the loss here. This is the loss. This black shaded area is the loss. You can complete the diagram nicely. See, that's 5 marks. Now, it looks like a hard question, but you just need to properly draw the graph. Draw the market demand and supply curve and draw the individual firms. That's right. There was some, which question you choose for A levels? I think I did not do unit number 1. And then, no, you don't have to give explanation. They're just saying it wrong. Can't remember. I did in the 2017 paper, if I'm not mistaken, I did question 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4, and 6 and 7. How PS minus FC is economic profit. I'll come. And then, okay, you don't need an explanation, because this is, they're asking you to draw the explanation part of it. You've done in part A. You can get that done. You didn't do all 10. You don't do all 10, don't. You anyway can't have the time to do all 10 questions. Don't do all 10 questions. Paper, there is a 10 question. You got to choose 5. Right. So then this one, again, easy one. 2023 question number 1, to distinguish between accounting profit and economic profit. Easy, again, show how profit is calculated. Then tell here, look here, accountant does all of this. Economist does all of this. That's what he considers as cost, and you can get that. Okay, that's it. BSA told he did all questions. But I think that's a stupid thing to do. Maybe maximum 1 extra question if you're a little weak. You're doing all questions, that's the biggest stupid thing that you can ever do. Because what I will recommend is, now, for a smart student, please don't go and write 1 extra question. I'll show you in the final seminar. I'll show you how to select and make sure you write the best one, right? But don't go and write more questions. The fact that you're writing more questions, you're implying to the examiner that I am not sure of my answers. You're immediately setting that negative tone saying, look here, I'm writing 1 more. If you are a weak student, you're looking at, let's say, passing the exam, getting, let's say, a S or a C, then you go and write 1 extra thing, no problem. But if you are a smart person who can at least get an A, use that time to make your 5 answers better. Don't go and write a 6th one, which you definitely know they will cut off. If that is because they anyway will cut off the one that you have the lowest mark. So don't waste time writing a 6th one if you know that is the lowest mark. Use that time to build on your other 5 levels. So I'll show you. I'll run you through the whole thing, how to select, which order you can write the questions. We'll go through that in the seminar. But just remember that if you're a weak person, that's okay. If you're not sure, pass then writing 1 extra question is all right. But definitely not all 10 questions. That's a complete waste of time. I'll talk about how to select questions. All of it we'll talk. So maybe you can spend around 10-15 minutes there. For economic and accounting profit except for the equation. No, there is no specific definition like that. So that's fine. This question you can do. We have done this before as well. That's a 2023 paper. Okay. Then we come to last paper. This is the 2024 paper. The latest one done in December last year. During a production period, a firm earns 200,000 in total revenue and incurs 150,000 in explicit cost. The firm's implicit cost, including the opportunity cost of owners, capital, and labor, is 70,000. Calculate the firm's accounting profit and economic profit. This is a very disappointing question, for 4 marks. Maybe this could be a MCQ for 2 marks. But I think so. How much is the firm's accounting profit? Accounting profit is total revenue minus direct cost. So total revenue here is 200,000. Your direct or explicit cost is 150,000. So your accounting profit is 50,000. Then how much is your economic profit? Economic profit is total revenue minus direct cost and indirect cost. Revenue is 200. Direct cost is 150,000. Indirect cost is 70,000. So your economic profit is a minus 20. So that's your answer. That's a, these questions are actually disappointing now. After doing all, imagine you do all those past papers ඔක්කොම කරලා until 2023, you do all the past papers, make short run cost curve, relationship of that, fixed cost, produce a surplus, how that connects, ඔක්කොම you study and go, and they give you a question like this. Then you're like, in vain, no? All the effort that you put. So I don't know what will come in your year, but I hope and pray, Lama, it's not as easy as this. Because this 4 marks is any random now. My 26 batch fellow will get this right now. Without doing any past papers, without doing any revision, without doing anything, I give this question to my 2026 students, they will get this right. 27 people I haven't taught them yet, but that's the point. So that is it. That's the whole cost story. I all okay. No, but I would prefer my overall a difficult paper because that is where the Z scores and all get better. Because when you get a very easy paper, even the, I don't know, I might sound very cruelly thing. So if then even the weaker student gets it right, smarter student also gets it right. No? So then the smarter student doesn't really get a Z score advantage. The smarter student would have put hours and hours and hours, 2 years of dedication to study. The weak fellow would have done something in the last 4 or 5 months. Both get the same mark. Both get the same Z score. But you make the question hard, the smart fellow gets it done, the weak fellow can't get it done. Maybe a little cruel on my end, but that's the thing there, right? So sorry about that if you are a little falling behind. Not bad. I'm not trying to put you down, but just the story, my personal opinion. Normative statements. Right. So with that, we are done. Do you want to start off focus area number 14? It's not that long, but it'll take around an hour to get done. 14 paper is this. 24 paper is this the only question? Yeah. From this area, from focus area 13, that's the only question. There are some other ones as well. Okay. Right. So with that, then, depending on the votes that we have on the sandbox, maybe we'll do 14 the next class. I don't want to rush it for guys also, but 14 is not a very long one. So what I want to do is, Lamai, do 14, which you all would have, most of you all would have done and come, no? Plus in the 15, focus area number 15, that is the last one, do the MCQs of that and come. We should be able to discuss those. So do focus area 14, that's the one on market structures, right? So there is not much, there's only 25 questions here. Get that done. And then focus area number 16, perfect competition in detail, do the MCQs of that and come. Next class, we'll try to get that all discussed. The cartoon, I will leave it for, okay, maybe, okay, I'll quickly wrap off with the cartoon then. So, because the cartoon might not be relevant next week. So the cartoon is about how the cost of living in Sri Lanka is increasing a bit, but personally, I feel it's not a very alarming thing because in June, you would have seen, one is electricity bill prices went up. There was an electricity tariff revision that actually started going up. And also, they increased fuel prices a bit. So fuel prices by petrol prices by around 10-15 rupees have actually started going up. So the cartoon is talking about how that increases the cost of living. But personally, I don't feel the cost of living is actually increasing a lot. Inflation rates are at negative levels. Electricity also, even though they increased for the last 1 year, they have been continuously bringing it down. Right? So they have continuously been bringing it down. So now they have increased it a bit, because remember cost reflective pricing. So that's why they have to increase that. Same thing with fuel as well. Why they're blowing in the sense to, increase the fire, to make sure the fire is more stronger. So that cost of living goes up and up. Inflation will hopefully start becoming positive very soon. So the first half of 2025, it has been negative. I feel by around August, July, I'm not very sure, but I feel by around August, inflation will start becoming positive again. CCPI, year-on-year inflation. So far, it has been negative in the first 6 months. Right. So that's the cartoon there as well. So with that, we'll call it off. We couldn't do the thing. We'll probably do that the next time. Yes, the coordinate, the problem with the coordinate is it takes so much of time. We'll see, I'll work on that and we'll get that done. I'm looking at hiring extra coordinators. We'll get that done. We'll have the document session tomorrow, fast track. Okay, so if you have questions, please do stay and clarify. See you. Bye-bye. Welcome. Bye.